Hello everyone, welcome to the another episode on AnubhavTrainings.com. In this series of videos, we are talking about how to consume calculation views in HANA using CDS views and build a beautiful Fiori application displaying the analytics to the end user. This tutorial is being brought to you by Anubhav Learning Series, free learning series on YouTube to train you about the latest technologies and concepts like CDS views, AMDP, ADBC, and lot more. In the last video, we talked about the concept of creating a calculation view in HANA. We have learned how to write native SQL to consume the calculation result as an aggregation. We have learned about how to write a CDS table function and create an AMDP for the given CDS table function to consume the data from calculation view in HANA. In this video, we will expose the result which we have produced in the last session to an exposed CDS view, and then we will create an OData service on top of it using OData annotation, and finally consume this OData service in a Fiori application to build beautiful analytics. So let's start. I'll just quickly show you the result which we produced in the last session. If you have not seen my last video, I would request you to please click on the I button above or find the link of that last video into the description of this video so that you can navigate and watch that session and then come back to the second session to understand a little more in details. So what we did in the last session was we were able to consume the result of the calculation view in the ABAP layer by far through the CDS view here, which we have created. And now we will be creating a view on view. So let's create a view on view. So now I'm going to go back and say new. And we will be creating another view on view basically. So what is view on view? Please go back and check my ABAP on HANA training to understand more about view on view concept. So let's create a new view on view, Z CDS Anubhav, consuming HANA KLC to Fiori App. That's the journey we are taking now. Say next. And we'll be creating a new view. And let's write down some name here for this particular view. So I just say Z Anubhav KLC. And we'll be calling our CDS table function to create a view on view. And now we'll be exposing the elements out here with the key property as gross amount. And we just save this. Also, it's time to create an OData service for this. So we will just define the annotation for creating the OData service so that Fiori app can understand the same. So let's do that publishment here. And now as you can see, this one also expects a client parameter. So it's important and mandatory to pass this client parameter to this view. And I will pass session variable to pass the client field. Awesome. Now, if you would like to understand how to create a parameterized view and how to consume the parameters via the OData service, please feel free to watch another video on the I button. When you click, you will find out the details for that parameterized CDS view consumed with an OData service. So as you can see here, the activation failed. The reason is very simple. System is unable to understand the reference field for gross amount. So we have to also include the currency code here. And we have to mark annotation to make this as an amount field and specify its currency code. Okay, and we have to also mark another annotation for this one to make it as aggregated value. So I will just say default aggregation is sum for my gross amount. Beautiful. So that's your CDS concept in general with annotation. And now let's give an activation to this. And let's see what happens. Of course, the result will come on your way when you do things right. And as you can see, system is now generated an OData. It's time to register our OData service. in gateway client. So let's switch to the gateway transaction code. So I'm going to do Control+6 to open a SAP GUI window here in Eclipse environment. And now we will be just going ahead and registering this service. I know many of you who are watching this tutorial just for the sake of understanding and learning. Some of you may not even getting what is happening. The reason is because your fundamentals are very weak. And if you want those strong fundamentals to be built, I invite you all to join my ABAP on HANA come S4HANA training on anubhavtrainings.com. So you can always go to our website, anubhavtrainings.com, and that's where you can actually find the course so-called ABAP on HANA. So you can see ABAP on HANA come S4HANA trainings. So this is the course you should take it to become an expert on CDS, AMDP, ADBC, native HANA, and all this stuff. It's a must-know course today for any developer who willing to become an expert on S4. Very, very, very advanced and very detailed course, which will make you a hero from zero. All right. So now let's go back, and it's time to register the service. So we will go to transaction code main service. Don't worry, I will share this entire code with all of you in a notepad file. Please check the description of the video. You will find the link for the complete code. All right, let's register the service with our gateway system. And yeah, there you go. I just registered the service as really quick. And then we will be able to check the same result in form of an OData, because a Fiori app does only understand OData service. So we just search. There you go. Call browser. That launches the service here. Awesome. And just quickly connect to my service. There you go. And let's quickly enter this to see the data in the JSON format. Beautiful. There you go. Each of the company and the corresponding sales in US dollars. Awesome, guys. That's really phenomenal. Right from the HANA DB, we've got this data on the ABAP layer, and from there we've exposed it in a Fiori app. What next can be better? Yes, exactly. You're thinking right. We got to build a Fiori app. So we have exposed this data in the outer CDS with the view on view concept. The step is done. Create the OData service using annotation. Step is done. Register our OData service. Yes, this step is also complete. And finally, the climax of this video, consuming this in a Fiori app to build analytics to showcase this data in a chart. Awesome. Let's go back. And for that, I will switch to our preferred development tool called Web IDE. And we will create a quick new Fiori application using template, so-called an UI5 application. And I choose here a project name. I say Z Anubhav KLC and say ATS AnubhavTrainings.com. And I say KLC. Awesome. Let's say next. Create a new view, maybe calling it as a main view. Finish. And now the very first step is we need to create the OData model as a default model. And then also we have to go ahead and create binding with our OData service. So I go to manifest.json. And here in this, I will go to the models. Before that, go to data source and plug our OData service here, say plus. And now we will choose our SAP S4HANA system. Yeah, just quickly choose that, loads all the list of services. The one which we were using was ZCDS Anubhav. That's your service. Next, finish. So that creates the connection to the backend system. Now it's time to define a default model for OData. Let's set it as a default model with the connection and say OK. It's been created, the connection successful. Just save this manifest.json. And now it's time to define a chart control as part of this view. Now, before we really do that, let's quickly change the description for the application. The title here is AnubhavTrainings.com. Consume HANA Calc view to Fiori app. That's really cool. Let's quickly run this quickly without having any chart at this point of time. So we just quickly execute this, and it asks me the credentials for my ABAP system, because it's calling now that OData service to load the metadata information. So just it of course does not display anything to you at this point of time. So remember, we had some result in HANA DB, which it was showcasing me when I was running. So in the HANA, we have this built-in analytics as part of the HANA Studio. So similarly, I want to now display this data in a Fiori application. So here I want the similar pie chart to be displayed. So for that, we use the Fiori Views frame control. If you want to learn complete end-to-end Fiori application development, please subscribe my UI5 and Fiori training. That's where I've explained the concepts of binding, views, controllers without any copy paste of code. Never learn from trainers who are teaching you copy paste, because that's where they tend to hide their skill set and they will kind of cheat you. So never learn from those trainers who are teaching you copy paste of code. Learn where you've been taught every single line of code in front of you. That's the right way of learning stuff. Awesome. Remember, there are never bad students, there are always bad trainers. Those bad trainers will kind of spoil your learning, and they will take you away, long away, away from the technology. So there are never bad students, there are always bad trainers. Awesome. Let's come back. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to be creating a viz frame here, and this viz frame will be displaying the pie chart finally to the end user. All right, similar to what we saw in HANA Studio. Now, to add the chart, we need to add the dependencies first of all to the UI5. So let me add quickly the dependencies on the viz frame control with SAP UI5 namespace. The first one dependency will be the viz dependency from straight away from SAP UI viz library, which is called visualization library from SAP UI5. So just say UI5 dot controls. That's the first dependency. The second one comes is viz data dependency. So just put viz colon dot data dependency, and this comes as SAP viz UI5 data. And the third dependency comes is XML namespace viz feeds. So all of them comes from SAP Viz family. So let's save this up till here. This still won't get you the chart. Of course, it's just a dependency. To add a chart, now it's time to add the Viz frame here on the UI. So let's quickly do that. So for that, we'll start with the Viz namespace, and we will start with the Viz frame control. And we will give a UI config for the frame, and it's going to be in the Json format. Application set Fiori, and we will give the Viz type, which is nothing but I want to add a bar chart first to begin with. Okay, we will be adding first a bar chart. Later on, we will also configure this with the drop down change. Every time we change the drop down, we want to change the chart type to, let's say, pie chart or a donut chart. So this is something which we'll do configuration later. Now I will add the Viz dataset. So let's add Viz dataset aggregation. Together with that, we have another aggregation called Viz feeds aggregation. Now within the dataset aggregation for the Viz frame, we will have the Viz data namespace used to create flattened dataset. And now we have to specify the binding. So it's going to be an aggregation binding, with our entity set. So let's go to the OData service. This is our entity set. We will be picking it up with slash and just put it here. So this is where my data source is. You remember we already done the binding and created a default model for OData service. So that's what the binding is going to do the job. And as you all know, whenever we create analytics or chart, we have two aspects. One is a dimension, another is the measure. So we will create here with data dimensions. We specify that dimensions aggregation. And we will also have with data. Okay, that's a namespace, so it has to be colon. And now we will also have with data measures aggregation. So in the dimension, we will have with data dimension definition. I will share this entire code in the description of this video. You can download it directly. So dimension description, I will say company name. And let's put here the value, what is going to represent the value from my OData service. So in my OData, you can see this company underscore name is the property, which is going to come here and sit as my dimension. Really cool. And then we will have here the measures. And this is going to be measure definition with again a name. And I will put, let's say, the amount. And the value of amount is again getting binded from the OData binding. So let's go back and say gross amount. Put here the amount. Superb. Now it's time to give feeds. Feeds are basically the labels we want to specify for the data feeds. So let's do that with feeds, feed item. And this is going to represent my value axis. What is that you want to feed on the value axis? I say the value axis is of type measure. And this is going to give values from my amount. So my gross amount is going to be feeded in this axis. Similarly, my next axis is going to be another which feed. It's a category axis with a type value as dimension. And the values is going to represent with my company. So that's the company linkage here. So that system can display the company names out here for us. And yeah, that's it. We are done with this, and hopefully this binding should work fine. And as a result, we should get our bar chart getting displayed on a Fiori app. I just click on save and come back to the Fiori application and refresh here and just sit and relax, get a coffee, let it load. And what you see, we have got some error. Seems like I press F12 and just check the console. What's the problem? You can see cannot add direct chart without default aggregation defined for control. SAP Viz UI5 data flattened data set. So there is a problem with a flattened data set. So let's go back. What's the problem here with respect to flattened data? I think I've done a typo here with the spelling of dimension. As you can see, the spelling is incorrect. So an extra T is being added. Let me fix this up and we will save it again. All looks nice. Let's go and try. So come back here. You see there was an error here. I'm just going to close this and refresh. Our dimension spelling has been corrected now. And hopefully if everything goes well, we should see. Oh, wow, that's you go. You can see a beautiful bar chart displaying the sales analytics in form of a bar. Amazing, fantastic. Let's increase the width of this bar chart to the full of the page. So I'm going to go back to the this frame level and say, please take the entire width of my page 100%. And let's save it back and come back and check. So this is the data from HANA DB from your calculation view to the CDS layer to the OData service and finally to the Fiori Fiori front end displaying to the user. Amazing, amazing guys, amazing. Now it's time that I will go back and quickly give you a nice another feature for kind of a drop down here, and on change of the drop down I want to change the chart type dynamically. So for that we will utilize more UI5 concepts. Of course only a UI5 consultant or UI5 developer can do this magic out here with respect to playing with the controls and the data. So you need to understand the core UI5 concepts to be able to achieve the same. So what I'm going to do is create a local model in on init method, and I will just define it in my scaffolding template. Please subscribe my SAP UI5 training to become an expert on UI5, and don't think that a ABAP developer cannot learn. Of course, the UI5 framework is meant for ABAP developers. If you are truly an ABAP developer, you definitely should learn, and I will make sure that you are successful learning UI5. I am myself an ABAP developer since many years. And if you think that you cannot learn, it's incorrect assumption. You can easily learn SAP UI5 and Fiori. We will cover this from scratch in our UI5 foundation course. Okay, so just create a JSON model and just add the dependency here. Let's create a new. Let's create some dummy data here. And I will choose, there are two data sets I will put. The first one is I will put the chart type, and I will just hardcode the value as bar and then say available all types. So all the available chart types we'll be adding here. So let's do that. So we'll be possibly adding text value. You can just add value, enough. So what are the possible chart types in SAP UI5? Maybe few of them I'm only putting, not all of them. The most important ones, the bar chart, the column chart, the stack chart, not sure if it's there, and then say donut chart. Okay, these are all the different types of charts we can possibly use for. So okay, I'll choose a pie chart. Yeah, I promised you pie chart, so let's use pie chart. So now it's time to create a drop down on the UI and bind it with this model. So let's set this model to the view level. It's a local model, and just save this and go to the view and add a quick drop down out here just above. With an item segregation. That's superb, really cool. And let's put here the binding with the value. I love UI5. Awesome. This is what changes the experience for the end user. That looks pretty well. And now we should just bind this local chart type also to our application here in the chart. Let's do the same binding with a selected value, selected key property, and that's what will influence your chart type. So initial value of chart type is bar chart, and later on this value will of course change on selection changes with respect to the drop down. Unexpected namespace core, yes, I understand that. Let me create it quickly. So I know you are not able to understand the core namespace, so let me just define, and I will save our view. Fantastic. Let's come back and refresh. Take a deep breath and yogasana. Let's try this out. Hopefully we should see the magic happening on the UI. So we got a bar here, and you see this is a bar chart currently rendered. I'm going to show a pie, and I switch to a pie chart. Oops, it's not changing. Yeah, it's not really changing or not doing the work. What's going wrong? There's something we are missing. All right, something we are missing. Let's check it out. So we're going to change the chart type dynamically on selection. So maybe let's see what is the correct property I should use. Let me just say, is it the value property? I'm not sure. There's something with the property we are not doing it correct. So that's why it's not working. Let me just quickly explore. Is it a value or is it a text property? Which property influence the right thing? Which property gets you the right result? Let me just try. And of course, this change is not affecting anything. Just check. Last time the text, maybe if not, then we have to go by an event. We have to attach an event for the drop down control. Whenever the drop down changes, at that point of time, it should change the chart type dynamically. So it's not happening. It's not working that way. So no problem. We will just go by selected key. And let's give an ID to the V's frame. So let's give an ID, my frame. And now I am just going to say change event on chart change. So let's write this in the controller now, on chart change event, just on chart change function. Whenever the chart value is changing, var view object equals to this dot get view. And then you're going to get your event object, which is going to give you the chart value. And then this is what we will be changing in the viz control. So just directly obtain the viz control object. Yeah. So viz control. Is the ID correct? My frame. Let me just cross check. Yes, it's my frame. So now it's time to save everything. Yeah. So let's save everything. So before we also go, let me also cross check, are we using the correct property? So there's one correction here. We cannot get directly the keys based on this direct event. We have to just do a get source to first obtain the object of the drop down control, and from the drop down we have to get the key. And the second one is go to the view and check. You see here we have the property called widget type. Yeah. So, okay, I've done a mistake here. I think it should have worked naturally because I had kept here the view type. It should not be view type. It's viz type actually. Okay. So this is viz type. Anyway, we can just remove this now. No need for that binding, extra binding. We can just change the dynamically this property called set widget type, just visualization type, and I will save this. All looks good now. On change of the drop down, we will get the selected key, and that's what we'll set as a viz type for the chart control. So now all looks beautiful. Let's go back and refresh here. So initially it displays some kind of chart whatsoever it is. Let's say the default behavior is displaying a kind of a bar chart, or what do you call it, as a column chart. Now I can just change it to, let's say, a pie chart. Awesome. There you go. You can see exactly the same view what you were seeing in HANA Studio. Yeah, exactly. See this equal size of almost three of them, or four of them are equal, or five of them are equal size. Similarly, you can find one, two, three, four, five of them are also equal size. So exactly the same view. You get it here. I switch to a bar chart. You see how it looks like. Yeah, the sales, the column chart, this is how it looks like. I can just go to the donut chart. Awesome. This is so amazing. Thanks to SAP UI5 for rendering this result as a final result here. So where we started with a calculation view in SAP HANA, and now finally we are able to display this final result, and that's the last action item completed, guys. If you want to see more tutorials, end-to-end tutorials like this, please do subscribe this channel. Do share this video, because it takes a lot of courage and effort and time from my side to create these videos and this content. If you like this channel, please do like, subscribe, and share this video with your colleagues and friends. Put it in the WhatsApp group, everywhere, in your team groups, in your teammate folders, so that everybody can take free benefit out of this learning series. With that, Anubhav signing out. Thank you so much, and see you in the next video.